Well, I would like to just jump into our Built to Be Heard series tonight with a controversial point of view for some of you. But I think it's important that we have this conversation. And I welcome your thoughts because you were meant to be heard. You know, that's one of the reasons why I started this series. And I think that in the world of technology, in the world of AI, we are becoming too polished. And, when you think about it, we have tools that can actually create presentations for us, right? We have tools that can create posts and from start to finish, unless we use them the way of putting our thoughts in and then having the app make it better or maybe edit it or check for spelling errors, whatever the case is. However, we are losing some of our personality and some of our writing styles in there. That can absolutely happen. And when everything is perfectly formatted and maybe perfectly written, right? Then it can be unforgettable. I'm sorry, it can be forgettable. And that's not what we want, right? We don't want to sound like everyone else because you are your own unique person. There is no one else that will be able to speak your thoughts, right? So, in the world of technology, if we can make sure that we're using our tools that we have to amplify our voices, to amplify our personalities, that is the best way that we can do it. And I know that most of us have heard about all of the enhancements and things coming out on different platforms where readers can actually declare that what they read was actually AI slop or whatever the case is. I think that's good that we're, evolving that way, right? But we want to make sure that we don't get lazy, that we don't get complacent, because in the reality of things, you were meant to be, to be heard. Like I said, right? You were meant to be heard. But the people that want to hear you, they want to know how you think and what you do because of the fact that they could turn on any they could go to any platform, right? They could go to YouTube, they could search up a topic that they were looking for, they could Google it, they could chat GPT it. However, what makes you unique uh, is your specific point of view, right? So I've learned, that it's really, you know, we need to really step back and look at this objectively, which is really, yeah, is what got me thinking about it, right? Because as we are, surrounded more by all of the technology and the AI, that's what makes it even more important that we don't lose our ability to think, and to share our thoughts because it's just it's too important. I feel that if you don't do this, if you don't make sure that you're taking your thoughts, and you can, even in today's world, you can speak it into an app so that those are your thoughts, and then you are using tools to amplify your thoughts. That's really what's going to help you the best, okay? Because we don't need more thought leaders per se that are just going to regurgitate or just going to let apps write for them. we want more thought leaders that are going to share their points of view, whether they're provocative, in a sense, or maybe, controversial, whatever the case is. We want to know, you know, how those thought leaders actually think and what makes them tick. And if you remember, when uh, 60 Minutes was really popular. Like, I remember watching that years ago. I really don't watch much TV now unless it's like sports, like the Pittsburgh Steelers, or, some kind of a sporting event. Watch a movie, with my kids sometimes. But I don't typically watch I don't watch the news on a regular basis, and I don't watch the shows like 60 Minutes or Dateline, or I don't even know what's on anymore, quite honestly. But it was some of those shows and some of the well-written documentaries where we were able to really get super clear on how people think and what they do and what makes them move forward, like Elon Musk. Some of the other, thought leaders are visionaries in today's world. We were able to really understand what made them think and tick. Why did they choose to do this? What were their thoughts? And I think that's super valuable in today's world. However, I feel we've lost a lot of that. And it's one thing to be to be out there, to be visible. It's another thing to be known, right? But in reality, how are you, if you ask yourself, how can you really help that one client that you're seeking to serve? And I think that you will get your answers if you reflect on that. Schedule 15 minutes and really, get clear on, what would, 3 points be? What would, what would really serve that client? Maybe you just want to do it like one helpful tip at a time. Whatever works for you. You don't have to do multiple tips. Okay. But for today, I prepared three key takeaways that I wanted to share with you. And again, I welcome your thoughts. Even if you don't agree with me, please share your comments, because you may very well be helping someone else that may be watching this stream or reading this stream. So I encourage you to let me know and let us know what your thoughts are. Okay. So the number one key takeaway that I prepared, and this is what I want to say, is stop asking yourself or your team, what should you post? Okay. Instead of that, what I encourage you to do is to ask, what do you actually believe? What do you actually believe about this particular subject? And that particular subject obviously has to connect back to that ideal client that you're seeking to serve. Okay. So not what you think they want to hear or what you should believe, but what do you actually believe? Okay. That's the number one takeaway. The number two takeaway is stop thinking that you must sound like an expert. Stop thinking that, because chances are you already are an expert, because you have a particular way of thinking and doing in an area of specialty for the people that you're seeking to serve. Okay. So share those experiences, whether they are experiences with lessons learned on your own or how you've helped other client companies, other individuals. Share those lessons. Now, I'm not saying that you need to, go against someone's confidentiality, because that's absolutely not what you should be doing. However, you can take stories either with permission. I would encourage you to change the names and the circumstances of those, just again to protect people. But those stories can be very valuable as long as they are factual, and meaning, except for like the names or anything else that you needed to keep confidential. And make sure that there's full transparency in that, in the sense of what failed. And don't be afraid to tell us what surprised you, or maybe what you didn't know and what you learned. Okay. Because, as we continue to grow and evolve in our careers, it is a degree of reciprocity because we learn from our clients, right? Just like our clients learn from us. We may learn that a way that we presented a certain idea, or maybe we were teaching a cohort, or maybe we were teaching a college class, and perhaps our thoughts or our talking points for those lessons didn't land the way that we wanted them to. Don't be afraid to tell us that, because chances are, if you learned that, that could help, someone else that you are really, looking and seeking to serve. So if you are using AI and the apps and the technology the way that it's meant to be, then you will be able to stand out in a category of one from all of the other people that have that particular degree of knowledge, or that particular niche that you are really, specialized in, right? Because whatever you're really good at is what people want to know. So if they have that interest, they can get really good at that, right? That's super important. Number three, when you are posting or you are doing a live stream, make sure you give people something to respond to. And that's different than a call to action. Give them some thoughts, give them, some facts, give them some points of view that they can actually mull around in their heads and respond to that, because we want to promote engagement. People are on social media platforms not only to, speak what they know and seek to serve, but they are there to learn. So we want to make sure that we're giving people something to respond to, not something to scroll by. And I think that that's a big differentiation. And I have notes because I still use notes. I used to use just like index cards when I started doing live streams 10 years ago. But I have evolved now, and I do, whether I'm journaling, I speak a lot into my phone, of course, because I find that super easy to give my thoughts for my content. But if you just look at it from like, what point of view do you want to share, right? That's what you want to do. Give them something to respond to. So sometimes people may say, Toria or Victoria or the happy executive, I completely disagree with that. That's great, because I want to hear what they have to say, because we learn from each other and we want to be able to establish conversations, whether they're in DMs, whether they're in comments. That's super, super important. Or, of course, emails or texts. But, I'm curious, like, your thoughts. Do you think that we've become too polished online? Do you think that, that it's really something, maybe if you think like in your industry, right? Do you think as a whole that your industry would disagree with that? Or do you think they would agree with that? Because that really is the question. Do you think that we've become too polished? I mean, because we always say, we've heard this saying, done is better than perfect. However, in today's world with technology, we can literally have a presentation done for us. Now, this is not about making things more difficult for you, because we should be using your tools. I use AI. I love AI. I teach people how to use AI. However, it has to be done in a way that amplifies your voice, not making you sound like one of many. We want you to sound like you are in a category of one. Okay. And, we want to make sure that what you don't want is AI to manufacture a personality for you. You want to teach AI what your personality is, but you don't want them to manufacture a personality for you. And the reason why I bring this up is when AI started to become more mainstream, there were certain prompts where we could say, like, please look at this from Tony Robbins' point of view, or whatever thought leader you were aspiring to sound like or somewhat be like. Please look at this from Jack Canfield's point of view, right? Well-known thought leaders. However, that was confusing because while that might help to get things going, that would be along those lines of manufacturing a personality for you. And you don't want that. You have experiences that are worth sharing. You have a knowledge base that only you have. Okay. So you just need to make sure that your thoughts, your personality is what is conveyed to your right people in the right rooms. So I will leave you with that. The question of the day was, just as a reminder, do you think that we have become too polished online, either as individuals or as, industry sectors? Let me know about that. I'll see everyone next week. And I'm wishing everyone a very happy and blessed evening. Thank you for tuning in. I always appreciate you joining us. And if you would like to be a guest on Built to Be Heard, please DM me. I would love to have you on speaking and getting to know more of all the good things that you do in our world. Okay, take care, everyone.